1972 was a groundbreaking year insofar as the miniaturization of electronics. We had introduced this incredible Hewlett-Packard HP-35 scientific calculator, and in that same year we got the Casio mini calculator. Now this HP-35, this is a really sophisticated piece of kit. This came out of the United States. The United States was in a bit of a war with Japan, not a technological war I suppose you'd say, insofar as miniaturization. Electronics were being miniaturized in Japan, like left, right, and center, and the Americans had to catch up, and well, with Hewlett-Packard, they did so and then some. This here is the Ferrari. This here is the iPhone of 1972. Literally, this here is really super sophisticated electronics, miniaturized, put in your hand, functional, desirable. Everybody wanted one of these. Most certainly, everybody who really mattered, I think, engineers and technicians and scientists. In fact, I have no doubt that some of the scientists and engineers who were on the team that actually made the iPhone in 2007, I bet you they were like 20 years old at the time this was introduced, and they wanted one of these. However, they couldn't afford one of these because this thing was like $300 at the time, or translated now for inflation, well over $2,000 just for a calculator. That's where the Casio Mini comes in. This calculator here, on the other hand, came in at its initiation price of about $60 American. Still not cheap compared to today. If you take inflation into account, it's getting close to $500, but it was considered cheap enough, well, that people could actually afford it. And you think about it, at the time, the calculators didn't exist really. Well, not that much, and nothing they could fit in your pocket anyways. And being able to type numbers in and do some arithmetic, that was really significant. This HP-35, by the end of its production run, it sold about 1/3 units, whereas the Casio Mini, I don't have the full details on this particular model, but at the end of its production run, 10 million of these were produced. This was the Volkswagen Beetle of the time, or maybe the Nokia flip phone of the time. Well, let's put this HP-35 aside and devote our full attentions to this Casio Mini. Now, this Casio Mini was a bit of a compromise insofar as what they could actually accomplish for that price point. For instance, it has relatively few digits, only 6 of them. And these digits, rather than using LED displays, LEDs were expensive at the time, they used vacuum fluorescent displays. Each one of these is an individual tube, and we're going to take this apart and have a look inside and see actually each and every one of those tubes. Only 6 digits, 6 tubes, and take a look at the keyboard. You notice anything missing? There's no decimal place. There's no decimal place. I did a little bit of a 355 divided 113. That gives us an approximation of pi, and you can see the decimal point there that you can access by pressing that right arrow to see numbers to the right of that keypad. Now, this calculator, we're going to need to take it apart and have a look at it, because there is a little bit of erratic behavior, which I suspect is largely due to the keyboard. You can see that the keypad has a little bit of bounce, in which when I'm pressing buttons, I have to be really careful. I'm getting extra digits. However, I'm occasionally getting some bizarre behavior here, where it's putting numbers in which really don't belong. And, well, we'll have to take that apart and see what's going on. Oh, that one actually worked that time. Good luck. Look at that. I pressed 3 and I got a 1. So I think simply a cleaning out of the keypad should be able to fix that one up. I love the design of this calculator. It reminds me, really, it looks like, it totally evokes Braun from Germany, Casio from Japan. Japan is, well, in my opinion, Japan's notorious for shit design. They got lots of great engineers, and they make great products and great miniaturization and stuff like that. However, they rarely actually get a product packaged and designed in such an aesthetic manner. To me, this thing is beautiful. This here is totally Dieter Rams' kind of a Braun aesthetic. And to take it apart, there are 2 screws, one on either side. Simply undoing these should do the trick. Not plastic self-tappers. These are actually into metal. Put that down and see if it comes off relatively easy. Got a couple leads there to the battery. And, ooh, there, oh yeah. There's some disintegrated foam in there. And there's no screws holding that circuit board into place. Instead, it just pops out like so. Oh, ain't that nice? So here is a power supply board right there. And this board is the keypad, clearly. The keypad connections there. And those are the individual vacuum fluorescent displays. And otherwise, this top board is really, really simple. You got 3 resistor networks there. A chip here, which I suspect is a display driver. And here is the calculator on a chip. This here is a Hitachi chip. That was one of the things that they needed to do to get the price down to point, was to actually use domestic components. At the time, Texas Instruments and a few other American companies were the main suppliers of calculator chips. And, well, they had... the tariff war, I guess, with Japan at the time, and it was expensive for Japan to get those American parts. So this here's a Hitachi calculator chip, which does have some compromises insofar as, well, what sort of digits are displayable and what sort of operations are doable at a time. So anyways, here is the power supply with a transformer, handful of electrolytics there. And that transformer is going to provide this VFD display with the necessary voltages that otherwise 4 AA batteries wouldn't be able to provide. I don't know, 20 volts or something like that. And now disassemble. This little ring of plastic right there came out. And I see it is a little bit of a plastic melted stud there to hold this battery contact in. So we'll need to fix that up. Let's unscrew the keypad assembly so we can clean out the switches. There we go. And there is the key assembly. Trying to keep that organized. And there are our switches. I got these little metal springs and a little bit of tape holding them together. Now I'm going to pull that tape off and get some deoxit to clean these contacts. And here are spring buttons, springy, and they are impinging upon these little jumpers, really. And these jumpers are clearly filthy. I'm going to give it a little bit of a touch up here with some deoxit. Need very little of this deoxit. You just put like a tiny, tiny drop and brush it onto these, and that should clean it up just fine. Let me do that off a camera. So I used a very small amount of deoxit on there, and these little tubes are bloody expensive, but they last a long time, so it's a good idea to have one of these on hand. See, just a drop on each one of these terminals. Now let us reassemble this keypad, and fingers crossed that that problem went away. So these just go on there like so, and they register with those holes. There are these little side clips that hold it together with some screws. Do that one upside down. And just like so. And now let's see if that deoxit treatment worked okay. We got a 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3. I'm not sure the light's picking it up, but it does seem to be working. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was just a little bit of keypad cleaning. Not a big deal. A little plastic ring I found upon disassembly must have come off of that stud right there holding this battery terminal in. There's a lot of plastic left there, so I shouldn't have a problem melting that down. I have an old soldering iron here I reserve for plastic melting purposes. I use it a bunch of times. Like right now, let's try this out. Let's see if we can kind of remake that. I think that should do about the trick right there, like so. And here we can see the beautiful 6 VFD tubes. Check that out. Before there were 7-segment displays, some of these displays used extra segments. This display here has an extra segment for displaying a little tail when the number 4 is being displayed. Now, unfortunately, on this calculator, I have 4s displayed at the moment. That little tail is not utilized. I guess that would have been 1 extra circuit trace, and that's money. So we're ready to put it back together. Just going to blow all of the decomposed foam out of there. Here's the power supply board. I'm not going to show it in any detail. You can check that out. There's some images on the internet about the power supply board for this calculator. Anyways, the power supply board, what it does is it boosts the power from these AA batteries, 4 of them, 5 to 6 volts. It's going to boost the power to what is needed to drive these VFD tubes. VFD is interesting technology. VFD, it's a technology rather similar to CRTs, cathode ray tubes, however, at a substantially lower voltage. Not that low, however. Low enough, however, that you can use it with simple batteries like AA's. Here I filled up the display with 8s, and those are where the power supply is coming through, and we can see that they are conveniently labeled. Let's take our DMM, our digital multimeter, out, and let's just check out one of the voltages that are developed from those AA batteries. Here is ground, and we'll connect that. It says they're minus 22, and we get almost minus 23 volts. And she's all back together and should be working. Looks pretty good. Check out that lowercase 0 there. Ain't that fascinating? Before these 7-segment displays standardized on full height zeros, there was a variety of different fonts available. This one here is using these lowercase zeros, which is kind of unusual. Now, this calculator is capable of 6 digits of precision, which means that you should be able to add a 6-digit number such as this with another 6-digit number such as that, which would give you 1 less than the maximum that this is capable of in simple arithmetic, plussing and minusing. However, what would happen if you were to, let's say, take a number like that and add, well, the same number there? What would happen? Well, it's kind of odd. It's keeping the lower 6 digits. However, it's missing that the leftmost digit, which should be a 1. And you press that right arrow there to display any further digits, and it's not working properly. Now, in contrast, if you were to use multiplication, well, then you can actually get beyond 6 digits of precision. Let's take that number there and multiply that by 2. And now we are finally getting that first digit, and we can see the remaining digits there. So it's actually capable with multiplication and division to show 12 digits of precision, which is actually more accurate than a lot of basic calculators nowadays, which is kind of interesting. Just for addition and subtraction, that's not the case. However, when it comes to to division, it works quite well. Let's say we want to take 10 and divide 3 into 10. Well, it's going to be 3, but then the remainder beyond the decimal place, we can see that by pressing that decimal key, and we can see 6 digits of 3 right there. Anyways, this here is one really limited calculator. Nonetheless, it was extremely popular amongst households in Japan. Check out some of these commercials in which there are some appearances of characters that look like they could be, I don't know, Bruce Lee or Super Mario perhaps. I'm not entirely certain. Anyways, 10 million of these sold. Especially so in Japan. In Japan, with the Japanese yen, they don't use decimals for their yen because they're, well, what is a yen? Is like a cent or something like that. Something less than that even. Anyways, thanks for watching. Take care, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.